Hey guys, we're back. This is game 2 of our doubles tourney that was last weekend, and it's going to be Orcs and Orcs versus Empire and Dwarfs. We'll take another quick look at our two armies here. When we're playing Dwarfs and Empires, we were real worried about the double warriors, and these guys had beat the double warriors, so we were now we were really concerned because we were worried about those double 3-up wards from the warriors, and these guys, it seemed like they took them out, so we felt like we had our hands full here. So we'll take a look at their army, and the first thing is like they really almost have no drops, and there's no beef. I mean, they have the knights and lots of war machines, so it's very dangerous, but it's like they don't have the fighting units, I don't think, to really take on our big uns. And basically, when you see these knights, and you see that we had 4 doom divers, we felt like, well, that's the main target. And when you see their cannons, like, what can they shoot out of us from our stuff other than our manglers and our doom divers? I mean, they either shoot at that, or they do they can do a little damage to our big guns, but not really enough. So, we're worried about the organ guns too. But the cannons we weren't really worried about with our big guns. But basically, this is a good synergy lineup they have, but we didn't feel like they really had a lot of targets where they could target our big guns and really hurt them. So we'll take a look at our deployment, and it's worth noting that for War Machines placement, we were told that each player placed their War Machines. You didn't place all the War Machines at once. So we didn't have to put all 4 Doom Divers at once. So first Ian put his 2 Doom Divers on the hill, because he figured, they could hide the knights on the other side of this building that's on their side. And at least 2 Doom Divers could see that big unit of knights he has. But with them, when they were doing their deployment, the Empire player had no war machines, so the Dwarf had to put all his war machines down at once. And he wasn't really able to afford the same luxury that we had of being able to put 2 Doom Divers down, and then later on put the other 2 Doom Divers down. Other than that, we have our big guns pretty much centered, and we have the squigs 10 wide. Ian thought, it'd be better to have them 10 wide because that might be another target for the cannons if they were shooting this Doom Diver behind it, and it would maybe kill less squigs than having them 7 wide the way I'd originally placed them. And this is a water look at their placement, and it's not a very good picture because you can't see on the other side of the skull hill. You can barely can, but he has this big unit of knights there, and on the hill there's an organ gun which you can't really tell. And then behind this building at the bottom part, left on their deployment, they have all their cannons, and they put the rangers, when he places them, up around the building here, which you also can't really see in this picture. And the rangers are there because I had wolf riders on the other side of these woods, and they're trying to stop my wolf riders from swinging around. However, I could still swing my wolf riders up the center, and these rangers aren't going to be really fast enough to really take them down. So basically, their deployment, they have their 2 fighting units on the edges, which is, I feel like it might have been a mistake because the dwarfs aren't fast enough to take advantage of being on the edge like that. And here's a picture of the Vanguard, and you can tell already that his knights up there are in trouble because the wolves are kind of stopping them. 2 manglers are there and 2 doom divers are there that can see him, and the other 2 divers can't see over the hill towards him. But he still has a lot to worry about, and he really can't do much because of those manglers. He can't really support fast enough to his army. And our Vanguard, my wolves up, you can't really see them, but they're at the bottom part of this building, so that I can try to go up to center and start threatening an orc gun right off the bat. So as always, I'm banned from rolling animosity for this tournament, but I wasn't really thinking, and I rolled animosity for this bunker here, and as you can see, I rolled a 1 for the animosity. So I'm supposed to be banned. I rolled a 1 anyway without thinking. But from now on, I'm banned. Alright, so we moved for everything other than the bunker that had fell in animosity. And you can see I've already got my wolf riders moving up to threaten his war machines. Now, his rangers could make the charge on the wolf riders, but they need double 6s, so I'm not too concerned about that. And I know that dwarfs war machine crew are real tough, and they don't have to worry about that much from goblins, but eventually the goblins can get through to them, so they're going to have to deal with these wolf riders. And also, you can't see in this picture, Ian marches his Wolf Riders over the hill, and they're threatening the other organ guns. So right off the bat, both organ guns are being threatened by Wolf Riders. So when we go into Magic, we've got double Foot of Gork. Both of us have Foot of Gork. The Goblin just has the signature spell, but he can't use it because it failed Animosity. So we only get like 6 dice, and I'm like, don't waste your your Great Shaman. Let me roll the 6 dice from my Foot of Gork with my guy. I roll the 6 dice. I have it placed between the organ gun and his level 4 wizard, but they're able to dispel it. So now we go into shooting, and we start concentrating heavily on the organ gun that's on the hill, and we roll 3 Doom Divers at it. We get 3 direct hits. The first 2 only roll 1 for number of hits. Both fail to wound, and finally, with our 3rd Doom Diver, we're able to kill 2 of the crew. And then our last Doom Diver scatters off wildly and not able to get onto it. But 3 direct hits from Doom Divers, and we still couldn't take that organ gun out. And so Ian's like, well, we've learned that Doom Divers are not good anti-battery machines. But since we have the Manglers there to stop the Knights, we weren't too worried about not trying to take care of the Knights to start with. But still, 3 direct hits. So now we're going into their turn 1, and you're going to see here that their tank just goes on into the Wolf Riders. So already we're forcing them to use a tank up on our Wolf Riders, and it's getting away from our biggins. Then they really contemplate on what to do with those Manglers that are in front of that big Knight unit. The Empire opponent, he decides to take his Warrior Priest out of the Knights and land it on the Mangler. And the Mangler does kill the Warrior Priest, but it's freed up those Knights. I'm not really, I guess it's worth it in that situation since they're kind of hemmed in, but I feel like I still got the better of that, because a Warrior Priest for a Mangler, I think that's a trade I'm willing to take. The Rangers, they start marching up, and they're trying to get around that building. Other than that, they have no other movements. They move their Knights up now that the Mangler there is dead. Okay, but now we have 1 more Mangler left, and we're going into their magic and shooting. For magic, they cast, I think it's like a magic missile at our squig herd, and we let that go, and it kills, I think, 3 squigs and a handler. They try to get a comet down in between our Doom Divers, and we were able to, I think we just waste our scroll on that. We don't really waste a scroll, but we use our scroll on that. Because other than the comet, they really didn't have any good offensive spells. So now we're going to shooting, and this shooting right here is going to be very crazy. First, the organ gun is pointed at the Wolf Riders that are threatening them outside. It only kills 1 Wolf Rider from that organ gun. So not only that it's not enough for a panic test, but they are now going to be charged by those Wolf Riders next turn. So they have 3 cannons and a grudge thrower left, and the other organ gun. They shoot the fire cannon at the troll. It misses. Now they fire their last 2 cannons at the Mangler, because if they don't take out that Mangler, it's going to probably hit that big Knight unit, and it might just wipe them off the board. Both cannons hit that Mangler. They both roll 1s to wound. That Mangler just will not die. They have to waste their grudge thrower. The grudge thrower does kill the Mangler, but they use up almost all the war machines to take out a Mangler. That basically saves all our Doom Divers. I think the last organ gun really has nothing to shoot at. That's just unbelievable. And now when we go into combat, the tank had misfired for its steam points, and it does 2 wounds to itself. That's why it has 2 wound markers here. When it grinds the Wolf Riders, it wipes them out. But overall, this was a very good turn for us. All that shooting, it takes out a Mangler and a few squigs. This is better than we could have hoped for. We have Orc and Goblin turn 2. We go ahead and charge the Wolf Riders at the organ gun on the hill. Try charging the troll at it too, but it failed. Other than that, we just go ahead and go into magic, and don't really get much off. I don't think we hardly get any dice. We don't really have enough for for full of gork or anything. Uh, so then when we go into shooting, I shoot my first Doom Diver at this tank, and I'm just trying to see if I can kick any wounds off of it. I'm not able to do anything. So then we start shooting at the big knight unit here, and it's an interesting situation. The first Doom Diver scatters off the knights, and it scatters off the board. So we have a question: can I redirect it back? Veer it. The Doom Diver special rule: veer it back onto the board, or if it's off the board, is it allowed to do that, or does it have to stay off the board? So because the Doom Diver special rule says this can veer it back, so we don't know what to do. So we just asked the guy running the tourney organizer. He comes over and he said, since it says if it's off the table, it stays off the table. We're not allowed to veer back on the board, even though the Doom Diver is allowed to veer in any direction. So the first Doom Diver then it misses. So then we shoot a couple more Doom Divers at the knight unit, and we take it down to 2 knights. We kill like 8 knights. So that knight unit is really no more of anything to worry about. But now we're going to combat, and it's supposed to be Ian's Wolf Riders, but I roll the dice, and I have the 8 attacks again, just like last time. I can't kill that last dwarf. The wolves strike first before the dwarf. The wolves fail to wound him. Then we strike at the same time. The goblins fail to wound him, so we're up by 1, but the dwarf's stubborn and he sticks. Going into their turn 2, their little knight unit of 2 try to charge a Doom Diver, but it fails. The dwarfs, they don't try to charge; they just keep marching on up, trying to get in the game. Now I don't know what he does with his steam tank. I thought he'd go ahead and move to the squigs, but he doesn't. I think they want to try to concentrate some shooting on the squigs first, which is basically what they do. I think they try a common again in Magic, and we stop it. But going in there shooting, they really start concentrating some fire into that squig herd, and they really start to decimate it. But I mean, the squig herd, we're not too worried about that taking damage. Now then they also put some cannons that are Doom Divers, and I think they managed to destroy 1 Doom Diver with their cannon shots. And we're going to the only combat. the wolves still fail to kill the dwarf. The dwarf kills 1 of the wolves, and then when the goblins are striking, they're able to finally kill that last dwarf, that war machine, finally take that organ gun out. Now we're in the Orc Goblin turn 3. The squig herd fails animosity and is forced to charge that steam tank. I didn't want him to have to do that. I wanted him to keep moving up, and one of the squigs to be striking out the cannons, or at least have the steam tank have to chase them, and not be forced into a combat, because it's almost precarious now because you can't see it here, but the Rangers now could get those in the next turn, get into those squigs, and possibly start getting into our unit. With the squigs, if they weren't there, then those Rangers were not going to really be part of the game. So the squigs, though, they're forced to charge in. So then we charge. Well, Ian charges his big and horde at the knights that are in front of them. They flee and get away. So when we go into Magic, we get a hand of Gork off on Ian's big and unit, and he's able to lift them up and move them so that they're really threatening most of the what's left of their army. When we go into shooting, Doom Diver lands right on the reign of 2 knights and wipes the unit out. We get 2 more Doom Divers on the Demigryphs, calls a panic test on the Demigryphs. They fail, and because they don't have a BSB that I know of. I mean, there's no BSB there, so the Demigryphs are just running right off the table. So I mean, now the Demigryphs are gone, so things are really going downhill for their army. Now we have the squigs and the tank. The squigs do nothing to the tank. And for the other combat, the Wolf Riders had charged the Grudge Thrower. They charge in, they don't do nothing to the Dwarfs. The Dwarfs do nothing to them. They lose by 1 because of charge, but the Dwarfs are stubborn and stick. Alright, so we're going into their turn 3, and you can see the Dwarf Rangers are now in the picture. And this is basically what happens. They charge the squigs. The Knights rally, they fled. So then, I think they try to do some kind of magic to Comet or something, and I think they do get it landed down. In shooting, they start trying to pick on Ian's big and horde, and it looks like they take a whole rank out between the cannons and organ gun. I think they try to kill it. I think they maybe destroy another Doom Diver with their cannons as well. So now we get into combat. Again, I think I kill one dwarf. They kill one wolf rider. It's a draw for that combat with the grudge thrower. But now the interesting thing is the way these rangers get into the squigs. They're only touching one night goblin, and they only do one wound is to the night goblin. So if I take the wound off there, that lets them overrun, and they just massively overrun 12 inches, so that now they're really threatening our bunker, and they're even threatening the rear of the Savage Orcs. So now I have to reform my Savage Orcs, hope they don't build animosity to a point where they're squabbling, and reform those Savage Orcs to deal with the Rangers now. And I took the casualty off there instead of the other side because I didn't want my squigs to go ahead and explode now. I wanted to hold that tank off for a while, because then if the squigs explode, and then in their turn the tank can go ahead and get into the Savage Orcs, but I didn't want that to happen yet. So it lets the Rangers, they just zoom on up. This is more than they've moved like the entire game. They move from one charge. They basically move probably 2 feet it looks like. So we're getting to Orc and Goblin turn 4, and I want to note that there's one more wound marker on that tank. I did manage to squeak one more wound in on that tank with my squigs and night goblins there. So when we go into our turn, I'm able to pass my test with my big and horde, and I'm reformed to face those Rangers. I'm really not concerned about those Rangers. I hate to say it, just that those Rangers really just can't stand up to a full Savage Orc horde like this. It also has an Orc War Boss in it. Ian tries to charge his horde. It's only like half a horde now at the organ gun, but they fail their charge. So when we go into to magic, we try to put a foot of Gork on his level 4, and we fail. Going to shooting, I think we only have 2 Doom Divers left. One of them gets a direct hit on the knights that had rallied back here behind this building, and we killed 3 of them. They passed their panic test. So going into combat, we still do nothing in the combat between the grudge thrower and the wolf unit, so that stays a tie. And then when we're going into the combat with the tank and the squigs, nothing happens, so that just stays a draw. Okay, so we're going into Empire Dwarf turn 4. They charge the little knight unit at the rear of the Wolf Riders, and he charges his Rangers. Just go ahead and charges the Rangers into the big unit. They're going into magic. They're trying to make, I think he has a spell he's trying to make my Savages -1 to hit, and we dispel that. The comet doesn't go off. We have their shooting. They're concentrating on Ian's Biggins and Doom Divers. I think they might have killed one more Doom Diver, because I think we ended the game with 1 Doom Diver left. So down, of course, when we go into the combat, they finally get the Wolf Riders, but we fight the tank and the squigs before we have the Ranger fight. The tank kills the squigs, it kills everything but 1 Night Goblin left. So that blows up, and it does 2 wounds to the tank, 1 wound to his level 4. It kills 5 Rangers, a couple of big uns. So it does more damage blowing up than it did while it was alive. So now we have the Ranger Savage Orc fight, and since they have great weapons, I'm striking first. I decimate those Rangers. I mean, they lost 5 already out of the 28. I kill like 12 more before they can strike. They come back, and look, you can see they may have killed 2 big uns. And I think those 2 big uns were probably killed by the squig blowing up. So they just really do nothing, and then my war boss kills a couple more, and they're basically on snake eyes. They run, and I catch them, run them down. It was just bad. Those dwarves just couldn't stand up to the big horde. And I feel bad for the dwarf player. I don't really know him, but I've heard that he's an old time player, but he's new to 8th edition, and I think he just hasn't caught up to the way 8th edition is fighting, and some of the disadvantages that dwarves really have in 8th edition compared to earlier editions. So now we're in Orc and Goblin turn 5, and we go ahead and double charge here. Charge my horde at the steam tank that's lost half its wounds, and he charges his at the organ gun. Then going into magic, if I remember correctly, we get the bubble for ere we go off, and both of our units going to have ere we go, and that's really going to help me against that steam tank. And I think we have 1 Doom Diver left, and if I'm just shooting it at the level 4, and I think I think it hits, but it does nothing through his ward save. So the end of turn looks like this. Ian easily takes care of the Orc gun. He overruns, so he doesn't do enough to get to the cannon. I come into this tank and I do 4 wounds to it. I'm taking it down to its last wound, and there's basically war machines left, and they're really in dire straits. Well, they're going to keep fighting on here because even though they probably haven't be able to win this, right now it's probably not a massacre. So if they can keep us from a massacre, we only get 2 points the way this system is. And if they can win their last game, they can still maybe get second or even first if we lose our last game. So they want to try to keep us from getting a massacre, and if they concede, they're going to concede a massacre. So they're just going to fight on here, and they just really start pouring it into Ian's unit again. They take a whole lot more models off. He's still frenzied, so he doesn't have to worry about any panic test. And then in the turn's going to look like this, and you'll notice that tank's still there. It has 1 wound left. I've still got area to go I can work in on my unit, and I have a war boss with a great weapon. I cannot, with 28 attacks from savages and 4 attacks from our war boss, I cannot do the last wound to that tank. He makes all his armor saves. I cannot kill that tank. We have Orc and Goblin turn 6. Ian charges the cannon. There's really nothing else to happen to this game in this turn here other than me fighting that tank, and you see that tank still there. I cannot do the last, still cannot do the last wound to that tank. I have 1 more round to get that tank, and they fly their level 4 back. So if he blows that tank up, he doesn't worry about killing his level 4. Okay, so the bottom of turn 6, since when Ian overran, he was not able to get to that second cannon. So again, they're going to be pouring it into Ian's unit. They really don't do much. He's still got a full rank left. He decides not to blow this tank up. You see the tank dead, but he decides not to blow the tank up. He's going to try to make me earn destroying that tank, and I just barely kill that tank. Finally. And I think that was just enough to make it be from a solid victory to a massacre, so that they give up the 3 points instead of the 2 points. That tank just did not want to die. So we have a victory to the Orcs. That was a tough one for them. I really think that the deployment, me and Ian agreed, and we were talking to them, that the way that the deployment was on the edges with their 2 units, it was pretty much really tough for them to come back in, because we were able to shut off those knights, that big knight unit with the manglers, and the rangers, even though they came in too late to really help out. So this is going to put us at 2-0 going to the final game. So basically, the way it is, if we win our last game, we'll win the tournament. But we're going to have to face my old nemesis, Paul. You'll know from almost every one of my battle boards against vampires. He's teaming up with Collins. They're doing a high elf Bretonnian team up. Lots of ward saves, lots of knights. I'll see you guys next time. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Feel free to subscribe and like, and I'll see you later. Con, you have to wait till next time. Stop trying to hog the spotlight. You're gonna get your due next time.